Born on March 29, 1943, in Halifax, Virginia, George Edward Wright grew up tall, sharp-eyed, and restless. By 19, standing between 5 feet 11 inches and 6 feet tall, he was already drifting toward trouble. On November 23, 1962, he made a decision that would define the course of his life. A gas station robbery with his friend, a desperate attempt at fast cash that spiraled into tragedy. A struggle, a gunshot, a man dead on the floor. Within months, Wright was convicted and sent to Leesburg State Prison to serve a 30-year sentence. He entered prison with his youth stolen from him. But even then, something inside him refused to break. Wright was not built for cages. Over 8 years, he studied people, routine security patterns. He watched prisoners lose hope, but his own resolve matured into something colder. Planned on August 22, 1970, guards walked their usual route and approached the cell, expecting to find him asleep. Instead, they pulled back the blanket and found only a decoy, pillows shaped into a body. The door had not been forced. No footprints. No clues. George Wright had simply vanished from a locked cell inside one of New Jersey's most secure prisons. The FBI launched a massive manhunt. Nothing. No sightings, no informants, no trail. Wright had disappeared so thoroughly it seemed supernatural. For 2 years, America searched for a man who no longer existed under his own name, because by then he had already begun adopting identities like Larry Burgess, Larry Darnell Burgess, Reverend L. Burgess, Jack Raglan, and later Jose Luis Jorge dos Santos. Then came 1972, the year the world heard his name again on a quiet September morning, a Delta DC-8 lifted off with 86 passengers. Mid-flight, 5 members of the Black Liberation Army rose from their seats and seized the plane. Among them was the ghost the FBI had failed to catch, George Edward Wright. Panic spread through the cabin. The hijackers demanded $1 million in cash and added a bizarre twist that stunned the world. The FBI agent delivering the ransom had to appear in nothing but a swimsuit to prove he carried no hidden weapon. The image of a nearly naked government agent carrying bags of money across the tarmac became one of the most surreal moments in aviation history. The ransom was paid. The passengers were freed. And under the nose of U.S. authorities, Wright and his partners forced the plane across the Atlantic to Algeria. There, they expected a fierce international standoff. Instead, the Algerian government seized the ransom money, but allowed the hijackers themselves to walk free. Once again, George Wright slipped through America's fingers. After the hijacking, the group fragmented. One by one, Wright's partners were captured or disappeared. But Wright became a shadow in the wind. He traveled through Europe, shifting between identities effortlessly. Jose Luis Jorge dos Santos in one country, Reverend Burgess in another. He lived like a ghost, careful, disciplined, blending in wherever he went. Eventually, he found peace in Portugal, a small seaside town, quiet and unassuming. He married, became a father, worked modest jobs, tended a garden behind a simple home. His neighbors knew him only as a soft-spoken man who rose early, loved his family, and watched the ocean as if it held secrets. For 40 years, he lived in daylight without being recognized, and arrests, and close calls, and hints of fugitive he once was. Then in 2011, everything changed. A fingerprint match in Europe reached U.S. authorities. After 4 decades of freedom, the FBI finally knew where he was. One morning, Portuguese police approached his home, and the man who escaped prison, hijacked a plane, and outran the law for most of his life was placed in handcuffs once again. The United States demanded his return, insisting his past crimes still required justice. But Portugal reviewed the case, his age, his citizenship, his decades of peaceful life, the legal nuances of his time abroad. After months of deliberation, they gave their verdict: no extradition and no return to an American cell, and unraveling the life he had built. George Edward Wright walked out of the courtroom a free man. Born in Virginia, raised in hardship, forged by crime, defined by flight, and protected in old age by the very nation he adopted, he remains one of the few people in modern history to escape American justice and stay free, that a man who spent 40 years outrunning the law until the law finally stopped running after him.